Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is TVP World. You're watching World News Tonight. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. The Russian-linked tanker suspected of cutting the Finland-Estonia power cable has reportedly been packed with spy devices, now seized by Finnish authorities. More on that in just a moment, but first, tonight's headlines. Putin apologizes for plane crash, denies blame for missile strike. President Zelensky accuses the Slovakian Prime Minister of fueling Russia's energy agenda. Georgians form human chain, rallying for EU membership. The investigation into the Russian-linked tanker suspected of cutting an undersea power cable between Finland and Estonia has uncovered new details. The ship was outfitted with sophisticated surveillance equipment designed to intercept and transmit intelligence on naval operations. Finnish authorities have seized the equipment. Katarzyna Nowicka reports.
High-tech equipment, including listening and recording devices, was found aboard the Russian tanker seized by Finland, according to maritime publication Lloyd's List. Authorities investigating the case have since dubbed it a spy ship.
This is the first time where allies have said enough is enough, and this is a significant amping up of presence that shows NATO vigilance and NATO resolve in the region.
The ship was escorted by the Finnish border guard in connection with an investigation into the undersea power cable outage of Estlink 2 in the Baltic Sea. Now it is located in the waters of the Gulf of Finland. Eagle S is said to be one of the hundreds purchased by Russia after it launched the full-scale war in Ukraine in order to circumvent sanctions and illicitly trade oil. This time, sabotage was on the list too. The incident has prompted NATO to boost its military presence in the area while Western leaders work to put together a new package of sanctions, this time targeting LNG.
The main thing is to do this systematically to disrupt Russia's shadow fleet.
Finnish authorities and other authorities are talking a little bit tougher than before, where the aim of possible further operations is not merely to prevent this kind of sabotage from happening, but also to prevent the shadow fleet from functioning.
Finnish customs officials secured some 35,000 tons of unleaded gasoline, but that's just a drop in the bucket. It's estimated that since Moscow built up its fleet, it now accounts for 17% of the world's oil tankers.
Vladimir Putin has been actively making phone calls following the Azerbaijan airline plane crash in Kazakhstan. After apologizing to Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev on Saturday, referring to the crash as an incident in Russian airspace, he also contacted Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev to extend his condolences for the tragedy. Khrushchev Panik reports.
According to the Kremlin's press release, in the call with Aliyev, Vladimir Putin stopped short of saying the aircraft was hit by Russian fire, instead referring to the situation as an incident. He did stress that the area the airliner was flying over was being targeted by Ukrainian drones at the time. This might have led Russian air defense to mistakenly fire at the civilian aircraft.
About 20 or 30 minutes after takeoff, we felt two explosions. The plane was supposed to land, but it didn't. Something exploded inside, twice. A man's hand was injured. We panicked.
While the pilots initially reported that the aircraft suffered a bird strike, that would not explain passengers suffering wounds while still in flight, once again pointing at an air defense missile strike.
We realized that the external impacts were causing injuries inside the cabin. I myself was wounded in the arm, and one passenger suffered a leg injury. Some people were starting to panic, and we tried to calm them down.
The struck aircraft was denied permission to land in Russia. According to Moscow, this was due to emergency protocols introduced as a result of ongoing Ukrainian drone attacks. Having made its way across the Caspian Sea to neighboring Kazakhstan, the aircraft crashed on approach to the airport in Akto, leading to the deaths of 38 people aboard and injuries suffered by the surviving 29. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also spoke with Aliyev on Saturday.
Today I spoke with the president of Azerbaijan. I express my condolences to the president and the people of Azerbaijan. I have no doubt that the full truth about the crash of the Azerbaijan Airlines plane can be established and that Russia will not be able to hide anything.
The crash has prompted a number of airlines to suspend their flights over Russia.
Ukraine's decision to close Gazprom's transit route has caused Russian energy exports to Europe to plummet to Soviet-era levels. While some resources will still flow through the Turkish Stream pipeline, projections for next year suggest severely diminished volumes, posing a major setback to Russia's struggling economy. Yamin Alyov reports.
Who is the winner and who is the loser after Ukraine announced it's halting transit for Russia's gas and oil giant Gazprom? The Russian leader hints at the answer.
We were always in favor of gas supplies, of the supplies being above politics, of them being purely economical matters. We never said no to supplies to Europe. Have we ever said no?
While Russian President Vladimir Putin might wish for a world where he could fund his war without resistance, expecting the oppressed to continue fueling his war-driven economy, reality appears not to match his expectations.
Transit flows of Russian natural gas takes place to Europe, not for Ukraine. Ukraine did not import natural gas from Russia from 2015.
The decision to halt transit through Ukraine has angered Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico. As Slovakia is still highly dependent on Russian fossil fuel imports, Fico has in exchange threatened to halt electricity supplies to Ukraine. Starting in 2025, Russia will lose half of its oil imports to the EU. This decision is expected to cost Gazprom $6.5 billion of annual revenue, money which would have likely funded missiles targeting Ukraine, vulnerable to Russia's relentless strikes on energy infrastructure. On the other hand, Kyiv is losing what is estimated to be $800 million for refusing to renew the gas transit contract. Despite these developments, Russian oil still makes its way to European countries through the Turkish Streamline, which goes all the way through the Black Sea and into the European continent.
Gazprom now is in a position of former Soviet gas export volumes in the mid-70s of last century.
Europe still relies on Russia's liquefied natural gas transported by tankers, but the European Commission is already working on its 16th package of sanctions that is expected to include LNG.
The Ukrainian government has reacted with outrage to Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico's threats to cut Ukraine off from EU-supplied electricity. This escalation comes as tensions between Bratislava and Kyiv deepen over the issue of Russian gas transit through Ukraine. Our correspondent Oz Kataji is in Kyiv with the latest details.
The diplomatic row between Bratislava and Kyiv continued to escalate over the weekend after the Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico threatened to cut Ukraine off from EU-supplied electricity that is transited through Slovakia. In response to Kyiv's plan to halt gas supplies, Russian gas supplies transiting through Ukraine into the European Union, of which Slovakia receives a significant portion of. Now, this was threatened by Robert Fico in a Facebook message posted on Friday as a retaliatory response to Ukraine's plans. And this has drawn a furious response from the government here in Kyiv, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs urging the European Commission to look into Slovakia's threats, as Slovakia is a member of the single European energy market. And it has also drawn a furious response from President Zelensky, who put out a statement earlier in the day saying it appears Putin gave Fico the order to open a second energy front against Ukraine at the expense of the Slovak people's interests. He also put out a video statement to the Ukrainian people about it earlier on. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
We are working with other neighbors in the EU, and I have instructed our government officials to do everything in their power in collaboration with the European Commission and all our partners in Europe to maintain the stability of the bloc's energy system. Whatever Putin may have told Prime Minister Fico during his visit to the Kremlin, European rules must prevail over any individual's ties to Moscow.
With Kyiv now set to halt Russian gas supplies heading into the European Union on the 1st of January, this diplomatic row seems set to continue to escalate. Sols Kataji reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
Georgians remain steadfast in their pursuit of European integration. Thousands have taken to the streets of Tbilisi and other cities in the country, staging peaceful demonstrations to demand a repeat of parliamentary elections and stronger ties with the European Union. Our correspondent Don Arlith reports on the latest developments in Georgia.
It's been 1 month since the Georgian government, controlled by the Georgian Dream, cut off accession talks with the European Union. It's also been 1 month of mass protests here in Tbilisi. Night after night, tens of thousands of people taking to the streets. For instance, earlier today, they formed a human chain of unity around the city, along the streets and on the bridges, before gathering and culminating here in front of the Parliament building, which they do night after night after night. Now, the moment we're waiting for is actually just ahead of us, coming up tomorrow on Sunday, when the new president-elect Mikhail Kavalashvili, the Georgian Dream candidate, the only candidate on the list, is supposed to be inaugurated. However, the current President Zhorbishvili, well, she says she is not stepping down. There's been quite a debate between her and the Prime Minister over whether she will face arrest or not, how they will remove her from, or if they will remove her from the presidential palace. Those are the key things that we're looking at tomorrow. Now, in addition, of course, the United States placed sanctions on Bidzina Ivanishvili, that's the oligarch here that controls the Georgian Dream Party, the founder of the Georgian Dream Party, and worth about $8 billion. So that is a critical development here that the protesters, the demonstrators here are very pleased with. Of course, they want to see more sanctions on place on members of the Georgian Dream. And of course, it's also been apparent that President Zhorbishvili has been invited to the United States for the inauguration of Donald Trump. Of course, a United States congressman calling her the only true legitimate president here in Georgia. So there's a lot ahead coming up tomorrow that we are all holding our breath for. Reporting from Tbilisi, Don Arlith, TVP World.
Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is facing backlash from Donald Trump's supporters after his comments on immigration. This controversy adds to growing discord within President-elect Donald Trump's incoming administration. Francisek Piles has more.
Donald Trump supporters went feral over remarks about foreign workers posted by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, future co-directors of Trump's proposed Department of Government Efficiency.
Anyone of any race, creed or nationality who came to America and worked like hell to contribute to this country will forever have my respect. America is the land of freedom and opportunity. Fight with every fiber of your being to keep it that way.
The subject of the spat is the H-1B visa, which allows U.S. employers to hire foreign workers in specialty occupations, including IT and engineering. Staunch Trump supporters like Laura Loomer, an investigative journalist and anti-Islam activist, felt attacked by Musk's statement, saying it favored workers from outside the U.S.
What about native-born Americans who worked like hell and slave away to work hard every day? Do you respect us native-born Americans too? We feel very disrespected. Elon Musk, let's regroup, Elon. This has been destructive. Let's regroup and talk about this civilly. Let's talk.
While civil at first, Loomer, like many other staunch MAGA activists, Trump's political vanguards, quickly lost her temper.
Oh no, another one of Elon's foreigner reply guys who isn't from America is attacking me and celebrating me being deplatformed. Notice, the accounts he reposts that are attacking me are all foreigners who worked against Trump in the primary.
Donald Trump, the supposed man in charge, has been a vocal opponent of the H-1B visa in the past. Having two future representatives of his government openly support the program has given rise to rumors that Musk could be affecting Trump's policies to benefit his own companies. as foreign workers often get paid less than their domestic counterparts. Some have even called the South African billionaire President Elon, a rumor Trump went out of his way to snuff out as quickly as possible.
All the different hoaxes, and the new one is President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No, that's not happening. But no, he's not going to be president, that I can tell you. And I'm safe, you know why? He can't be. He wasn't born in this country.
Experts and analysts say it's likely that the Trump-Musk alliance could come to a premature end, giving the pair just 6 more months of functioning friendship before a falling out happens.
In Tel Aviv's Hostage Square, Israelis have gathered once again, marking day 449 of their ongoing appeal for the government to secure a hostage deal. Now let's go live to our correspondent on the ground, Diana Skaya. Diana, what can you tell us about this rally and any developments in the situation?
Good evening, Ben. Well, just how you said it, 449 days. This is the weekly Saturday evening rally where Israelis are gathered now. But I just want to take you through here what happened a couple of hours before this meeting actually took place. You had hostage families that were in front of the Tel Aviv headquarters, accusing Netanyahu and urging Donald Trump to force Netanyahu into striking this deal and saying that it's really his fault that this deal is not coming through. Now, what we're seeing right now on screen here are the images of this protest happening right now, right this minute in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square. One of the former hostages, Almog, was actually rescued by the IDF. He was being held with 2 other hostages inside Al Jazeera journalist who was reportedly linked to Hamas when Israel last rescued them out of there, is attending the protest as well. There's also a leader from a democracy party that's there also vying to oust Netanyahu, blaming the government for that, and really urging the government to really step up its game, particularly before incoming President Donald Trump's inauguration just really shortly, just a couple of weeks away. And really, of course, the mothers, the parents of these hostages, really trying to somehow make this happen, make this go through. And let's not forget that meanwhile, at the same time, here the rockets have also been flying in towards Israel, towards the Jerusalem area from the Gaza Strip, still being launched by Hamas. So if we think here that Israel has somehow eliminated Hamas, like it says it has or almost has, well, we're still seeing struggles there. Ben?
All right, thank you so much for the update. Appreciate it. Now, the European Union has introduced a major initiative to reduce electronic waste. Starting today, most small mobile devices sold within the bloc must support USBC charging. This regulation will extend to laptops beginning in 2026, marking a significant shift in consumer electronic standards. Mike Steele reports.
It took a while, but we're finally there. All new mobile devices in the EU will now be standardized to feature what you know as USBC. This modern and simple standard used for charging and data has grown predominant in mobile devices in recent years, but mostly because of the regulation coming into force on Saturday.
We are replacing this pile of chargers with just this. The simplest solutions are often the best and most practical ones.
Apart from reducing e-waste by 11,000 tons annually, other benefits of switching to USB-C, according to the EU, include saving money. Consumers will save approximately €250 million a year on unnecessary charger purchases, as now you won't need to buy a new charger for every device. The charging speed will be the same for compatible devices, which means that manufacturers will not be allowed to limit these speeds for chargers of a different make.
As for me, who travels a lot, I think this will be very comfortable, very convenient for people.
It's nice to have less charging cords, because now my MacBook, my other Apple devices use less of these cords.
I think it's much easier and more practical, yeah?
Work on a common charger in the EU began back in 2009. First, the voluntary agreement limited existing cell phone chargers on the market to 3. But one manufacturer, Apple, refused to cooperate and used its own proprietary Lightning port up until recently. The new compulsory rules were adopted in 2022. They cover a wide range of devices, including phones, tablets, headphones, digital cameras, and more. Laptops will join this list in just over 2 years.
Tensions are rising across Eastern Europe and the Baltic region, with mounting evidence of Russian espionage and aggressive posturing. From ruptured cables in the Baltic to Estonia bolstering its border defenses, security concerns are escalating. Meanwhile, Slovakia's Robert Fico has threatened Ukraine's electricity supply, and a Kazakh plane crash near Russia sparks accusations of external interference. Joining us today on TVP World to provide insights is Artis Pabriks, former Latvian foreign minister. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good evening. Pleasure to be there.
So let's start with the cable situation. How significant is the discovery of spy equipment on the sea's Russian-linked tanker, and what does that imply for Baltic security?
Well, I think we have been seeing these subvert activities from the Russian side, possibly with some other countries assisting. Already for the last few months. We know that in October cables were cut, in November cables were cut, and now in December as well, cable between Finland and Estonia. And in 2 previous cases, these ships were not arrested. In this case, I think that Estonians and especially Finns acted in a very, very great manner. So they seized the ship. They have been also putting it in their port and making investigation, and what we discovered is also a spyware. So obviously, because in October and November, these previous diversions were not treated enough hard, I think Moscow and maybe somebody else simply got a feeling that they can go unpunished through this. So in fact, it is a very serious matter. Because I would say that now countries around the Baltic Sea should simply monitor every ship coming from the Russian port or going to the Russian port and use all the possibilities to not only monitor, but also to check these positions. Because if they don't have anchors, they are not safe to travel. If they have dirty toilets, probably they are polluting environment. So we should use all the options simply to restrict such kind of travel up to the end, possibly also to have to close Baltic Sea for certain countries or certain types of ships.
Right, you mentioned Estonia as well. So I'm wondering what message is Estonia sending by strengthening its fortification on the Russian border? Is it likely to deter aggression?
Well, Estonia just is an example because every Baltic country at this moment is activizing its navy, just like Finland and Sweden. Our borders with Russia is going to be more and more strengthened because obviously the signs which are coming from country, which means Russia, with their imperial ambitions are not good. And obviously when they see or feel the weakness in the West or weakness in the Europe, they have a tradition to escalate. So this is what we heard also from some Russian experts telling, on the one hand, denying that this is Russian involvement to cut cables, but also telling that if you will do something against us, then probably even more cables will be cut. So basically, they contradict themselves, and it's obvious from outside that the Russians are standing behind it, sometimes using also Chinese or some other country's ships, at least as far as registration.
Right. So how do these incidents align with broader Russian strategies in the region, particularly in hybrid warfare tactics?
It is traditional intimidation. They try to intimidate the Western countries. They know that the West is still not putting enough of investment in defense and security. They are using our laws, which are meant for liberal democracies, against us. Whenever they find some loophole in our laws, they simply will use it against us and then laugh into face, simply telling, look, we did it. It's not the 5th paragraph of NATO. It's not Article 4. So we can do it, and you cannot do anything about us. So I think our challenge as a Western liberal democracy is simply to find a way how to defend our freedoms and not to bend on front of authoritarian regimes. And this is what Finn showed very well, and it was not done previously like that regarding ships.
Right, but do you think the ruptured cable in the Baltic also highlights some vulnerabilities in critical infrastructures? Are regional allies adequately prepared to protect these sort of assets?
If there is a political will, there will be possibility to protect, because there is enough of Western navies in the Baltic Sea. We have enough of possibilities to observe underwater, also from the air. It simply has to be done, and it has to be done without hesitation. Because whenever we will hesitate, the escalation from the Russian side will take the next step.
And moving our attention to the situation in Kazakhstan, the Kazakh plane crash has led to a lot of accusations of external interference. What could this mean for Russian-Kazakhstan relations moving forward?
Well, I think it's rather a question between Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijani plane was shut down by the Russian air defense. And as we know, Putin basically recognized that in his call to President Aliyev of Azerbaijan. And I think that Azerbaijani government and authorities have been acting very professionally, because they have been asking for international investigation, not just investigation of some countries which are around Russia. I really would also say that Azerbaijani airline pilots really saved a lot of people, and we can see that now actually flights to Moscow and some other regions in Russia are not safe because of war against Ukraine. So we can see that number of countries have been postponing or abolishing air trips to some regions of Russia, which is very correct because it's dangerous.
All right, and speaking of the war in Ukraine, there's also some developments that I want to ask you about, particularly regarding Robert Fico's threat to cut electricity supply to Ukraine. It's drawn a little bit of criticism. What are the potential ramifications for regional unity and support for Ukraine if this indeed gets carried out?
Well, I think we have been very soft also within NATO and European Union towards so-called free riders in some countries, some officials, which have been openly showing their friendship towards Russia, which is waging war, hybrid war actually, against us at this moment in the West. And in some way, I think we should protect Ukraine, and we should protect any other country in Europe against any activities from within, because at this moment in Baltic countries, we are not buying, for instance, any oil or gas from Russia, which is not true yet in many Western European countries. And I think we simply should get away from the energy which is coming from Russia. And Ukraine, by announcing that it will stop gas transit from Russia through its territory to Western Europe from 1st of January. In my view, it's acting correctly, because if we cannot do ourselves the correct, morally correct and practically correct thing, then Ukraine helps those countries in the West. And Fico has no right to be angry about this, because simply, in my view, he was not acting correctly.
All right, so with all these different things going on, how do Latvia and as well as other Baltic states kind of perceive these developments in the broader context of NATO's role within the region?
Oh, we need a stronger presence of our allies in the Baltic Sea region, because as you can see, Russia is ready to escalate also in the Baltic Sea region. Luckily, I think that our relationships between Baltic Sea countries, Poland, Baltic states, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, are very good relations. So if we want, also by cooperating among ourselves, we can do a lot, and we can shed a light also in NATO and EU meetings how the thing should be done. Hopefully, there's also new US administration will be in line with their and our interests in the Baltics, because the Baltics and Northern Europe is strategic partner and always will be strategic partner of US and European continent.
Right, and very much like you aptly pointed out, if there is a political will, there will be a way. So thank you so much for your input and insight.
Correct.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you. Good night.
Cheers. And thank you for watching this edition of World News Tonight. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.